Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. I'm going to be telling you the David versus Goliath story that ties this all together. And we're going to talk about how Ms. Withers, Adanta's Director of Supported Employment Program, proved that her Parkinson's symptoms caused functional limitations and how she beat Mutual of Omaha. You're ready to hear this story? Okay, so I have told you that disability carriers are always looking for a way to discredit your symptoms and your functionality. And so let me tell you this particular story because as I said, I think it ties this all together. Now, one of the things that disability carriers are going to be looking at is the medical records. They're going to look at your activity of daily living forms, and they're going to be trying to determine what your level of functionality is. And as I've said, it's important that you have these symptoms and functionality form to document this so that we've got a good interval history. Now, there is, as I've said, no uniform definition of disability in a disability policy. So you need to get out your policy and review that definition, because the policy probably says that you would be considered disabled if you can't do the material and substantial duties of your own or any occupation. And your activities of daily living can demonstrate the limits on your ability to perform your own occupation, particularly if your symptoms are limiting your ability to sit, stand, or walk for more than an hour without having to rest, whether it impacts your ability to use your upper extremities, whether you have difficulty remembering simple instructions or completing a task because of your symptoms. Now, what you need to understand in this particular case that I'm going to use as an example is that the Parkinson's disease can not only be difficult to diagnose, but that's going to be used in the carrier's favor. And they're also going to question whether the symptoms result in functional impairment. So let me tell you what Mutual of Omaha did in this case. They used those kinds of excuses, and the federal judge said, no way. So Ms. Withers was employed by Adanta as the Director of Supported Employment Program. This job required a high level of cognitive functioning. She provided oversight to individualized placement and support for supported employment programs. She did training and supervision. She monitored staff in the field. She implemented quality improvement plans and acted as a liaison to other departments and agencies within this organization. Now, obviously, this job required effective written and verbal communications, functioning with team members, adapting to new and changing situations, responding to emergencies, and even safety compliance. That's a big hat, isn't it? Now, her employer supported her claim and wrote a letter to the disability carrier saying she couldn't interact with the employees and clients at the capacity that was safe for her or around those. So medically, over the years, she had been diagnosed with Meniere's disease, Hashimoto's syndrome, and an excessive sweating disorder. She even underwent a tilt test table for postural orthostatic tachycardia, known as POTS, and that yielded a borderline result. In May of 2018, on physical examination, she showed hyperreflexes of the knee with blurred vision and right-handed and head tremors with bradykinesia. She was diagnosed with unspecified tremors, and among the list of diagnoses was secondary Parkinsonism, but no clear diagnosis. Now, she continued to present for evaluation and treatment with ongoing tremors and the hyperreflexes. In April of 2018, it was suggested that she had a diagnosis of secondary Parkinsonism with tremors, but the etiology and the diagnosis wasn't clear. By May of 2018, her symptoms had progressed, and she even had the decreased arm swing characteristics of PD. But even so, her doctors didn't make a clear diagnosis, even though she presented with the common and recognized symptoms of PD. And it wasn't until August of 2018 that she was actually diagnosed with Parkinson's. So what happened to her claim? She applied for and received her short-term disability benefits through Mutual of Omaha. I'm going to call them Omaha. But when she applied for her long-term disability benefits, her claim was denied, notwithstanding the fact that Omaha had paid the short-term disability benefits and her Parkinson's symptoms had progressed. Omaha hired several liar-for-hire doctors who did not agree with the diagnosis of Parkinson's, and they didn't feel that the physical exam findings supported any specific restrictions and limitations. Now, in a twist of logic, and that's in quotes, the Omaha doctor said, look, since there isn't a specific diagnosis, there can't be restrictions and limitations. Now, in my humble but correct opinion, I think that's wrong. And if that wasn't enough, Omaha also objected to the letter her employer wrote on the basis that her employer's letter had no value because it was relying on her subjective complaints. And they insisted that since the employer didn't specifically comment on those symptoms which impacted her job duties and her inability to perform those duties, that the letter was just fluff and meaningless. Obviously, they denied her claim. She appealed. Ultimately, this case went in front of a federal judge. And let me tell you how the judge addressed the lack of a timely diagnosis and the no diagnosis impairment game. This is a case called Withers versus United of Omaha Life. It's found at 2021 West WL 106 2551. It's out of the Western District of Kentucky in March of 2021. And Judge Stivers was the judge. And he was not impressed that the peer review doctors hadn't considered the mental or the physical requirements of her occupation, and noted that Omaha's liar-for-hire doctors never addressed the requirements of her position or explained how she could possibly be able to continue doing that work. The judge criticized their failure to consider the objective findings on PD, including her tremors and their impact on her ability to work. And the judge saw through this no diagnosis, no impairment game. And the judge awarded her not only her short-term disability benefits, but her long-term disability benefits. So you can see in this case how the carrier plays this no diagnosis, no impairment game, and what it takes to win a Parkinson's disease case. Wow, we've covered a lot of material today. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you like this podcast, please consider liking our page, leaving a review, or sharing it with your friends or family. Remember, this podcast comes out weekly, so tune in next week. I look forward to sharing more information about your rights to long-term disability benefits in our next episode. Thanks.